So imagine keeping your kitchen, like, just completely spotless.
Right, like aggressively clean.
Exactly. So clean that on the rare occasion a stray fly wanders in, it takes one quick look around and, immediately leaves.
Because there's literally nothing for it there.
Yeah, nothing. You have created this perfect closed system of pristine cleanliness, but then imagine bringing just a single box of fresh seafood into that immaculate kitchen.
Oh, I can see where this is going.
Right. Within 30 minutes of washing and prepping it, this massive swarm of flies suddenly invades, essentially laying siege to the room.
Which is incredibly relatable and highly annoying.
It totally is. But for you listening today, we are actually using that literal kitchen invasion to trace this wild philosophical thread. The goal of this deep dive is to trace a concept that starts with that annoying kitchen problem and scales all the way up to the fundamental nature of our minds.
And our realities.
Yes, and our ultimate spiritual scent. So the text we're looking at today is an essay by an author named Xu Feng titled How to Know Whether You Are Fragrant or Foul.
It's such a striking premise, really, because it takes this very grounded physical experience, the sudden appearance of those flies, and opens up this massive metaphysical conversation about cause and effect.
Because the kitchen didn't actually change, right?
Exactly. The author's perfectly clean environment didn't change its core physical structure. I mean, the countertops were still scrubbed, the floors were still swept, but it suddenly became a magnet for pests simply because of what was introduced into it.
Yeah, and that is the inciting incident that kicks off this entire philosophy. So the author's friend brings over a box of fresh shrimp and 2 fish from Mozambique.
Which I'm sure smelled very strong.
Oh, absolutely.
Wow.
They start prepping it, the flies swarm, and it isn't until they finish eating the seafood and thoroughly scrub the entire kitchen top to bottom that the flies finally start to disperse.
What's fascinating here is the author's realization about those flies. They didn't just happen to be passing by an open window.
Yeah, they were on a mission.
Yeah, they were actively drawn by the fishy smell. And the author even speculates they were pulled in from possibly like a 10-kilometer radius.
Wow, 10 kilometers.
Yeah, and the profound realization that hits the author in that moment is really about consumption. Because by bringing in and eating this foul-smelling food, the author realizes they are inevitably polluting their own body.
So the food becomes part of them.
Exactly. Even after the physical matter of the shrimp and the fish is digested and gone, the essence, that odor, leaves a lasting mark on the physical being.
It's like lighting a massive bonfire in a pristine forest.
Oh, that's a good way to look at it.
Right, you can put the fire out the next morning, you can sweep away the ashes and make the campsite look like nothing ever happened.
But the smell stays.
Yeah. For days afterward, the smoke clings to your clothes, to your hair, to the gear in your bag. The event itself is entirely over, but the residue absolutely remains.
The text even points to a biological detail to back this up, which I found super interesting.
Oh, about the mosquitoes.
Yeah, it notes that people with high blood sugar in their system actively attract fleas and mosquitoes. It's this chemical, biological reality that our internal state broadcasts a literal signal.
So the physical mark of consumption changes your baseline state.
Right. You broadcast a completely different frequency to your environment. And the author actually synthesizes this observation into the essay's first major maxim.
Which is kind of the core rule for this whole thing.
It is. The text says, flowers draw butterflies, while fishy smells lure flies.
Okay, let's unpack this.
Sure.
Because if our physical state dictates what we attract, and that state is based on what we consume, the author is basically arguing that whether you attract beauty or pests depends entirely on whether your base state is fragrant or foul.
Exactly.
But the essay suggests this isn't some, modern revelation, right? Humans have known about this for a very long time.
Oh, absolutely. Within the author's framework, historical and religious traditions are essentially these massive multi-generational studies in this exact principle.
Which is wild to think about.
It is. The essay looks at various ancient dietary laws, not as just arbitrary cultural rituals, but as deep systemic wisdom aimed at managing this human scent.
Yeah, and the examples the text brings up are incredibly diverse. Like, it mentions the Bible forbidding certain meats as unclean.
Right.
It points out that Islamic tradition avoids pork and the meat of animals that died naturally. Buddhist traditions often reject meat entirely, along with pungent, foul-smelling foods like garlic and onions.
And the Taoists, too.
Yeah, Taoists are required to fast and bathe before performing their rituals. And then there's this wonderful personal anecdote the author shares about their grandmother.
I loved that part.
It's so grounding. She was this illiterate woman, yet she knew countless profound stories about celestial beings. But the detail that really anchors it is that she never ate meat, not even eggs, for her entire life.
Even though she wasn't Buddhist.
Right, she wasn't even a Buddhist. She just intuitively followed this restriction. Are these ancient dietary laws just arbitrary, or is the author suggesting there's a literal, functional mechanism at play here?
Well, the author is definitely arguing for a functional mechanism. The grandmother represents this innate spiritual intuition. And the essay actually introduces a profound scale of consumption to explain why all these traditions kind of naturally gravitate towards similar restrictions.
So there's a hierarchy to what we eat.
Exactly. This scale categorizes the energetic results of our diet. According to the text, and this is a quote, meat eaters become heavy or dull, vegetable eaters become light or clear, grain eaters become wise, and air eaters become spiritual.
Wow. Okay, we have to look at the mechanism there.
Yeah.
Why does meat make someone heavy in this philosophical model?
So it represents a continuum of density.
Hmm.
When you consume heavy, dense, complex physical matter, like animal tissue, your body has to expend an enormous amount of metabolic energy to break it down.
That makes sense biologically.
Right. But within this philosophical model, that dense energy actually transfers to your internal state. It grounds you, makes you heavier, duller.
And plants do the opposite.
Yeah, as you consume lighter, simpler things, like vegetables or grains, the processing requires less density. So your internal state clarifies. You become lighter, wiser.
And air eaters.
That's the extreme theoretical end. Consuming nothing but air means you achieve a purely spiritual state, completely untethered from the heavy decay of the physical world.
Okay, so on a literal level, we can all grasp this, right? You eat a raw clove of garlic, your breath has that scent for hours.
Oh, definitely.
And the essay states that eating beef leaves a beef taste in your mouth, eating fish leaves a fishy taste, and eating insects leaves an insect taste. That is the undeniable residue of consumption.
Right, the scent lingers.
But here's where it gets really interesting.
Yeah.
Because the text pushes this logic to an absolute extreme.
It really does.
The author wonders if meat eaters have more brutal personalities compared to vegetarians because they're internalizing the energy of the animal. And then the author genuinely asks, if we frequently eat animal meat, could we literally become animals in the next life?
That is the ultimate escalation of the premise, for sure.
I have to push back on this, though. I mean, isn't taking the phrase, you are what you eat, to this literal extreme of reincarnation a massive leap for the reader to make?
It is a big jump.
Because does using an extreme example like transmigration of the soul risk alienating a listener who just wanted some practical, grounded advice?
Yeah.
Like, I can follow the logic that garlic makes my breath smell, but telling me a steak makes me a cow in the next century feels like it derails the practical utility of the essay.
That is a completely fair critique, and it is a massive conceptual leap.
Yeah.
But if we connect this to the bigger picture the author is trying to paint, the utility of that extreme example is actually to shatter the modern illusion of consequence-free consumption.
So it's about raising the stakes.
Exactly. The text explicitly notes that the path of cultivation in this world is not something to be taken lightly. The point of introducing reincarnation isn't necessarily to convert you to a specific theology of past and future lives.
Right.
The author is using the highest possible stakes to impartially present a specific worldview, which is that absolutely no act of consumption is neutral.
So it's a thought experiment designed to force you to feel the weight of your choices.
Precisely. Which is the exact opposite of how we normally live.
Yeah, we totally brush things off.
We tend to think of daily habits as isolated events. But the author is demanding you view them as architectural blocks of your future self.
Wow.
Whether that future trajectory means your mood is sluggish tomorrow, or your cardiovascular health declines in 10 years, or your actual soul changes its form in the next life, the underlying mechanism remains identical. You are constantly building the machinery of your future with the materials you ingest today.
That reframing makes the metaphysical leap much more useful. It's about recognizing that there is no such thing as a free lunch, energetically speaking.
Right. Every action has a reaction.
Every single input has a required output, which actually provides a perfect pivot point for us. Because if physical food shapes our bodies, our immediate scent, and potentially our long-term trajectory, what happens when we look at the mind?
Ah, yes.
The author transitions us from physical digestion to mental digestion, a diet of the mind.
This is where the essay's core metaphor truly expands into the psychological realm. I mean, we easily accept that the stomach breaks down food and sends those nutrients or toxins into our bloodstream to build our cells.
Yeah.
The author argues the mind operates on the exact same mechanical principle with the ideas it consumes.
And the essay provides a vivid list of what constitutes spiritual food and the direct consequences of digesting it.
It's a pretty intense list.
It is. The text argues that reading ghost stories all the time fills your mind entirely with ghosts.
Makes sense.
Watching pornographic material fills your head with lustful thoughts. If you obsess over money, your mind becomes nothing but ledgers, accounts, and calculations.
It just takes over.
Right, and if you obsess over power, you spend all your time constantly eyeing ladders of status, always looking for the next rung to climb.
And the same goes for fame. If you are obsessed with fame, you spend your mental energy plotting how to get famous or how to artificially associate yourself with famous people.
The author also includes a deeply philosophical example here, noting that a lifelong diet of reading purely atheistic books leads a person to believe firmly that existence determines consciousness.
Right, that humans can conquer fate entirely on their own, and it leads to the ultimate rejection of the greatest creator, according to the text.
And we are just impartially reporting what the source material says here. But within the framework of the essay, these aren't just passing thoughts, are they?
No, not at all. They become the cellular makeup of your consciousness.
It is so incredibly similar to how we talk about modern technology and algorithmic feeds.
Oh, that's a great comparison.
Think about, opening up a new social media account. The feed starts out blank, completely neutral. But if you only click on videos that spark political outrage, the algorithm learns that your diet is outrage.
And it feeds you more of it.
Exactly. It reconstructs your entire digital environment to be a solid, inescapable wall of anger. The author is basically suggesting that your brain is doing the exact same thing with the media, the conversations, and the ideas you feed it.
You are actively training the algorithm of your own consciousness.
Yes.
This raises an important question about neuroplasticity, actually, even though the author uses spiritual terms. Because how does our mental diet actually wire us?
Right. Literally in the brain.
Yeah. Every time you consume a piece of media, you are strengthening a specific neural pathway. You are teaching your brain what to look for in the world.
So if you feed on negativity.
Exactly. If you consume a diet of anxiety, fear, or superficiality, your brain becomes hyper-optimized to spot anxiety, fear, and superficiality in your daily life.
And that becomes your mental scent. We tend to think of our minds as a void where information just goes in, flashes on a screen for a second, and disappears.
Like it has no weight.
Right. We don't view our attention as a stomach that has to process and digest absolutely everything it takes in.
But that is the most dangerous illusion, according to the text. Just like the physical body, the mind cannot hide what it is digesting.
It leaks out.
It does. That mental scent becomes the signal you are broadcasting to the world, even if you think you have a perfect poker face.
Which brings up the ultimate practical problem for anyone listening to this.
How do you know what you smell like?
Exactly. You can't smell your own breath without cupping your hands over your mouth, and you definitely cannot objectively smell your own mind.
No, we're terrible at judging ourselves.
We really are. We are all the heroes of our own stories. We all think our internal state is perfectly justified. So how do you actually know what your internal scent is?
The author has a really elegant solution for this.
The mirror test.
Right, or as the essay calls it, the law of gathering. Since you cannot objectively evaluate your own internal state, you have to look outward at the environment reacting to you.
And the author provides this series of poetic pairings to illustrate this law of gathering, right?
Yes, it is a fundamental rule of attraction based entirely on scent and frequency. The text notes that where there are animal carcasses, eagles are bound to gather.
Where there is foul-smelling food, flies will certainly gather.
Where there is wealth, businessmen gather.
Where there is entertainment, the public gathers.
And where there are plots for crime, criminals gather.
But instead of just listing those off, let's actually look at the invisible networking mechanism the author is pointing to here.
Okay, yeah.
Let's take the example. Where there are plots for crime, criminals gather. How does a mental state, a plot, project an invisible scent that attracts other people?
Well, it works through subtle signaling and behavioral alignment.
What do you mean?
A criminal plot requires a very specific internal state, right? It needs a high tolerance for risk, a certain level of paranoia, a willingness to deceive, and a really specific type of moral flexibility.
Right.
When a person operates on that frequency, it bleeds into how they speak, who they trust, the jokes they make, and the environments they frequent.
It's all in the subtext.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Honest, transparent people are naturally repelled by that subtle paranoia and deception. It feels foul to them, so they distance themselves.
But other people pick up on it differently.
Right. Other people who share that risk tolerance and moral flexibility recognize the signal. They feel comfortable in that frequency, so they gather.
So the environment naturally matches the frequency of the core object.
Perfectly.
And the essay continues that progression all the way up the spiritual ladder. It notes that where there are saints, wise people gather. And finally, where there are divine spirits and the greatest creator, saints gather.
Because the mechanism is identical at the highest levels of purity as it is at the lowest levels of decay.
It is entirely impartial.
The universe in this model does not judge you, it simply matches you.
So what does this all mean for you, the person listening to this right now? The author is presenting a very direct and honestly somewhat uncomfortable challenge.
It's definitely a hard mirror to look into.
It is.
Yeah.
You are being asked to take a hard, objective look at your immediate surroundings, look at your friend group, look at your workplace dynamics.
The drama you're dealing with?
Right, look at the situations you constantly find yourself entangled in.
Huh.
Look at the drama or the profound peace that fills your typical Tuesday.
Because according to the logic of this text, these external factors are not random accidents.
Wow.
They are not the result of bad luck, and they aren't unearned good luck either. They are a perfect, unbiased mirror reflecting your own internal scent.
So if you're surrounded by chaos, betrayal, and constant conflict.
The essay suggests is because you have consumed a mental and emotional diet that emits a chaotic scent. You are broadcasting a frequency that tells chaotic people they are welcome.
Wow. But it works the other way too, right?
Absolutely. Conversely, if you are surrounded by peace, deep wisdom, and supportive relationships, it is because you have cultivated a fragrant internal state that naturally repels the drama.
So the external world is simply the swarm of flies or the flutter of butterflies responding to the banquet you have laid out internally.
That's a beautiful way to put it.
It is a heavy realization to swallow because it completely removes the ability to play the victim to our circumstances.
Which nobody likes to give up.
No, we love playing the victim, but at the same time, it is incredibly empowering because if you control the input, you fundamentally control the output.
To really summarize the massive journey the author has taken us on today, we began in a pristine physical kitchen that was suddenly invaded by flies from miles away.
All because of one box of fish.
Right. All because a single foul-smelling item was introduced into the environment. And from that incredibly grounded reality, we discovered a profound metaphysical principle about how we move through the world.
That scrubbing the physical counters isn't enough.
Exactly. Scrubbing the counters and sweeping the floors is not enough to maintain a pure environment. True cleanliness requires rigorously monitoring every single thing we ingest.
Physically and mentally.
Yes, that means our physical diet understanding that heavy, foul foods create a heavy, dull state of being. And equally, if not more importantly, monitoring our mental and spiritual diet.
The ideas we consume.
Understanding that the ideas, the outrage, the media, and the obsessions we consume shape our consciousness just as drastically as a fishy smell shapes a room.
As the text beautifully concludes, a clean body wards off illness, while a pure heart invites celestial beings.
It really is a complete holistic system of living.
It is. But as we wrap up this deep dive today, I want to leave you with a final lingering thought, a question to mull over as you go about the rest of your day, building on what we've just discussed, but looking toward the reality of actually applying it.
I love this part.
So think back to the very beginning of the author's story. Remember the mechanics of what happened in that kitchen. Once the author finished eating the fish, cleared the place, and thoroughly scrubbed the room with soap and water, the text notes that the flies finally began to disperse.
They left because the scent was gone.
Right. So for you, the listener, if your current surroundings, your current stresses, or your current toxic friend groups are just the flies that have been attracted by your past mental and physical diet, what happens the very moment you decide to radically change what you consume today?
Oh, that's a tough question.
If you wake up tomorrow and just stop consuming outrage, if you stop feeding on negativity and gossip, do the negative elements in your life disperse immediately, like the flies in that perfectly scrubbed kitchen?
Or is there a lag?
Exactly. Or does a deeply ingrained spiritual scent like the smoke from a mental bonfire that has been burning for years, maybe decades, require a much longer, much more painful period of detox before the butterflies finally start to arrive?
That is something to seriously think about.
It really is. Thank you so much for joining us on this deep dive. Keep your curiosity sharp, vigorously defend your mental diet, and above all, keep your scent fragrant.